Everyone thinks, oh, you're managing the property. Well, true, but we're also managing people. And managing people is the most difficult thing to do in business. It didn't take me long to realize we had a management issue, just people management. And I think that's the biggest issue, the most difficult thing when it comes to property management. I think the last stat I had, we were 320 units leased and we had one person not paying. I always say every year it can't get any worse, and the city council figures out how to make it worse.
Welcome to the podcast. My name is Taylor Avakian, and today I'm here with my esteemed guest, Chris Gray. Chris, thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Appreciate you. So you are the president of Moss & Company, which is, if anyone doesn't know, is a massive property management company. I think 15,000 or so units under management right now.
Got it, right.
And you're only a fee management. You don't manage any of your own stuff in-house.
Right.
Can you tell me a little bit about how Moss came to be? Like how do you get to 15,000 units?
Happy to. Proud to be on this show. Thanks for having me. So Moss started way back in 1960 as an investment, real estate investment firm. It wasn't until the 90s where fee management was introduced. And then fee management kind of grew, bigger than the holdings they had over the years. I joined the company in 2011. And at that time we were just under 4,000 units. And I came from a sales background, two other industries. So I really came in for business development. And really haven't looked back since then, and grew quite a bit, right? From just under 4,000 to now 15,000 units.
Sweet.
We've also seen our commercial. A lot of people forget we have a commercial management element as well. And we're up to 3 million feet under management in commercial.
So what goes into managing commercial versus apartments? Because I came from a background where my company, where it started, was heavy into triple net leases.
Mm-hmm.
So, I'm very familiar with triple nets.
Easy management?
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, wait, what really goes into managing?
Not much.
Yeah.
Action.
I was going to say, it seems like a pretty good deal.
No, yeah.
I want to manage as much commercial as I could.
Yeah. Well, remember too, you have different types of commercial. So you got multi-tenant, right? You could have a big office building, small space, for example.
Got it.
Becomes much more management intensive, similar to an apartment building, but obviously drastically different, right? 24/7, people where they're living, more business hours in the work element on the commercial side. So as we say in the business, it takes a special animal to want to be on the multifamily operation side for sure.
Yeah. Do you, so what were some of the tactics you did to take it from 4 to 15? Because that's pretty.
Okay. So it's, without boring you with the details, when I started, I came from a sales management standpoint. So, really I just went on a listening tour in the organization, learning the business, right? If I was going to sell the business, I needed to learn the business. And that meant talk to a lot of people, from the site level folks to the middle management, et cetera. And obviously it was a lot smaller company back then. It didn't take me long to realize we had a management issue, just people management, right? And I think that's the biggest issue, or I should say the most difficult thing when it comes to property management. Everyone thinks, oh, you're managing the property. Well, true, but we're also managing people. And managing people is the most difficult thing to do in business. People either love it or they hate it, or they're good at it or they want to be good at it, right? But it really takes an effort. And I was fortunate coming from a sales management background with great training in management. So I was almost taught it at a young age.
Got it.
And so I realized we had a management issue. We made some changes in leadership, not in the first year even, right? It really took 3 to 4 years, right? To kind of change some of that stuff. But once you get the right leadership in place and then you start hiring the right team, it's amazing what happens. I always said a goal would be like build a company that builds itself. And truly it all comes down to culture, how you treat your people. I know everyone says it.
Yeah.
It's easier said than done.
Yeah.
But once you get a great culture in place and really put the people first, it's magical what happens.
Interesting. Okay. So because there was a podcast that I've listened to, and they talk about what is the real business you're in, right? And the example they give is like a gym, right? A gym is not a company that's goal is to make people fit. Right? They're in the sales and marketing role. They want to get as many people in as possible and sell them on the memberships. Like that's how most gyms make money. It's not how good their programming is. For property management, how much of it is getting good staff and people to manage everything versus getting new clients to then be able to manage their buildings. Does that kind of make
Yeah,
sense?
if you build the right team, it's amazing. It becomes kind of like a magnet for new business.
Mm.
Clients, prospective clients, will come in and see it. You almost are wearing the culture in an interview and any conversation. You realize when you walk the corporate office, are there smiles, right? Or is there conversation, or do people look miserable,
Mhm.
right? And there's something about that energy of the right culture that just attracts business. So it's I don't want to say it's easy to grow, but
Mhm.
we've never had a problem growing through taking care of our people,
Mhm.
taking care of our clients, and then it's word of mouth, right? And in property management, as I said, it's an easy business to start. It's an easy business to get into. Low barriers of entry.
Mhm.
It's conceptually very simple, right? But it's hard to do. Back to your gym analysis. It's easy to the thought of getting shape. Everyone knows how to get in shape,
Yeah.
but damn, it's hard,
Yeah.
right? It takes discipline, it takes motivation,
Mhm.
and it goes back to that people management thing for sure.
Totally. Did so it what is interesting to me is because I talk to a lot of owners, right? And there's not one that's not true. Maybe there's one that I've talked to who's like, I love my property management company.
Yeah.
Most people don't. Why do you think most people don't like their property management companies?
There's always something to find that's not optimal, right? And that's the other challenge, right? You could, we have top 5 KPIs that we manage on a daily, monthly basis, right?
Mhm.
We call them the key priorities. So we figure, hey, if you manage these well, everything else will fall in place. But the better you do in each layer of the onion you peel, right? There's always something where you could get better. So we have another thing within our culture, right? I stole it from Tony Robbins. I'm a big Tony Robbins guy,
Oh, let's go.
big mindset guy,
Yeah.
right? And he has something, called Candy, and it's continuous, never-ending improvement. It's exactly the approach that really any good property management company, any business, I
Mhm.
mean, any industry at the end of the day. The second you think you know it all, you know nothing,
Yeah.
right? So we're always looking at processes, right? Business is just a process that you can multiply and scale, right? So you got to lock in the process. And once you think you have the right process, you go, okay, here's priority 1, priority 2, 3. You set up those processes. When you get through that list of top 10 priorities, you got to start over again and figure out how can you be more efficient? How can you be more cost effective? The job is never done,
Mm.
right? It's, everyone says property management, especially on the multifamily side, is 24/7.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's 24/7 because the phone may be ringing. So that's true, but it's truly 24/7 because there's always something to improve on, right?
Yeah.
And so you could continue to work and you could continue to get better. We're never good
Mhm.
in our business. And the second you think you're good, the second you start failing.
So so then what is the biggest complaint, I guess, from owners and operators as to why they're not in love with their property management
Sure.
companies?
I could tell you the most common now, right, in today's market.
Yeah.
And a lot of it is market driven,
Yeah.
right? Some of the factors that we're dealing with. So right now, right, you have higher interest rates than people are used to. You have, and we're a regional company, right? So we're greater Los Angeles as that footprint. Right now, and I don't think many are talking about it, but we are noticing some softness in some markets due to the immigration,
Oh,
issues.
interesting.
Yeah, so some markets like in the valley,
Uh-huh.
steady as ever, right? We're seeing some softness in some of those markets for the first time.
From renting.
Yeah, prospects, renting,
Interesting.
traffic. Yeah. And no one's reporting on that. But, it's interesting with our footprint of 15,000 units in a submarket, we have a lot of data
I was gonna say.
right at our fingertips,
Yeah.
right? Um, and so that's one of the things we're seeing now. But back to your question of, what are the most common? I would say the single most common right now is because of the interest rate environment, cost of goods and services, you name it. Insurance,
Mm.
right, is a big one, and we could get into some of that later. But are the new builds,
Interesting.
new development, right? The cost of land,
Yeah.
the underwriting.
Yeah.
You have a budget to build. You have a timeline to build. Everything with LADWP is delayed. Every 100% of the projects are delayed.
Mm.
And so now you're running into your interest reserves, right? You're running out of capital. And now, okay, we got the TCO 3, 6, 12 months after projecting.
Mhm.
Now we're in a hole. We got to come out of the hole. And now the underwriters are backing in values. This is what we need, Chris. And I go, well, I wish it was that simple.
Got it.
Right. And so then it's a value, unfortunate. It's just it's an unfortunate piece of what we're dealing with in the market. And that could be specific to LA, California,
Yeah.
right? Regulations, LADWP is the common thorn in the side.
Mhm.
And so unfortunately, we're also seeing a trend where we're taking over for lenders because developers are walking away
Throwing
on the
back the
equity
keys.
piece. Yep.
So
So
the
we're
leasing is
probably
tough.
operating probably 8 to 9 assets now for lenders
Wow.
that we weren't involved with during lease up, but the lender takes over and then says, Moss, we need you.
We need you to come and turn this thing around.
Right.
That asset management side. So yeah, because a good property management company is almost a quasi asset manager when it comes to making sure the building is
100%.
maximizing its value, right? And I know leasing is always a big issue for people. I've had more people reach out to me because I talk a lot about AI and artificial intelligence, and there's a ton of tools that are coming out to kind of streamline a lot of those processes or try to streamline.
For sure.
And one of the biggest complaints is leasing units, and whether it's just the back and forth with setting up showings or doing lock boxes or following up with prospective tenants, things like that. I think leasing has been more of a problem in the last 12 to 18 months than it was in my prior career at all. And
For sure.
you're seeing that as well?
Yeah, signs of the market, right? Every LA is so interesting because you have so many different submarkets,
Yeah.
right? You can't group all of LA together. Every neighborhood is different.
Mhm.
So look, at the end of the day, you have the industry standard, right? Across the industry, when you look at all the data, less than 50% or about 50% of the calls are answered, right? So then you look at AI. So accessibility is key. Now, then you look at size of asset, right? So if you're looking at a 500 unit asset, right? We just did a Koreatown 500 unit lease up, blown out of the
shit.
water. It's fantastic success, even in today's market.
Wow.
40 leases last month, right? They're rocking it. But think about a 500 unit building. You've got a staff that's insane,
Mhm.
right? All in uniform, all in unison, and rocking it. And we have a great staff, right? It's always about the people. But that's a 500 unit asset. They're rare. What's most common might be in LA, might be a 10 unit asset,
Mhm.
20, 30, 40. Well, you don't have that staff, right? You don't have that payroll on a building like that.
Mhm.
So that's another key metric of ours is accessibility. Who's answering the phone? How often are they answering?
Mhm.
If someone walks up, off the street for a tour, is someone there to tour them? Or are you dealing with an AI computer and you say, or, in some cases when we shop buildings, they say, do you have an appointment? No. Oh, you got to make an appointment. You're like, what?
Mhm.
What is going on?
Yeah.
Right. So AI from a leasing standpoint is certainly an opportunity. And in my mind, and I'm fairly old school, right? You could never take away the human touch. Back to the gym
Yeah.
analogy, what makes a gym successful is the community they develop, right? Within their
That culture,
membership.
yeah.
So same thing with a community, an apartment community. You have to create a sense of community. That's sticky, right? That tenure,
Mhm.
renewals, right? People are going to say, I'm not leaving this place. All my friends are here. Or we've got these great resident events. These are fantastic. I'm not leaving,
Mhm.
right? I'll drive an extra whatever time so I could stay here, even though, maybe my job changed. Um, so back to the AI and leasing. So I do think that human interaction is very important
Mhm.
because of that sense of community. But there are processes, not only in leasing, but when you look from A to Z in operation in our industry, and I'm sure in most industries, where AI can be crucial addition in increasing efficiency.
Mhm.
That's where we're looking, right? I'm not looking for the consumer focus,
Got it.
centric, if you will.
Internal team
Yeah,
stuff.
but back end processes. So, for example, if someone sends a text message to a leasing office, usually it's pretty basic. That's AI. Respond immediately. Don't wait for a leasing agent on a tour. And I'm going back to, a 50-unit building.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a part-time manager. When are you
Yeah.
going to hear back from them?
For
So
sure.
that's where AI from the leasing process, I'll say, there's parts of that process that can be designated or run by AI
Mm.
and just increase your efficiency and customer satisfaction.
And you guys are actively trying to implement this or are
For sure.
implementing it?
And they're all over the place, right?
Yeah,
So,
sure.
and like anything, when if you implement any new technology, it's costly, it's timely, there's training, right? So I'd like to think we are on the forefront of technology, but I would say we're very careful. We do our due diligence. We really, and are we batting 1,000? No, I've implemented some things. I go, nope, pull that out. We're changing, right?
Yeah.
Because it's not what we thought it was.
Yeah.
We want to avoid that as much as possible. But certainly from an AI standpoint, I mean, all your big property management software systems from Yardi to RealPage to Entrata, what have
Mhm.
you, they all are implementing AI throughout the process. So there's AI there. I'll tell you, one of my favorite AI, or I should say maybe machine learning processes was in the screening process. Totally changed our industry. In
Tell me
fact,
about that.
okay, so in LA through COVID, right, the biggest issue was fraud. I won't bore any of your listeners of how long it takes to evict somebody, right? But we know it's a nightmare in
Yeah.
California. It's a nightmare in LA,
Yeah.
right? It's worse in LA than it is in California. But so the key comes down to the screening. If you get someone in there that's not going to pay, it's costly.
Mhm.
I don't care if it's 100 units or 10 units, it's costly.
Mhm.
So then they started kind of tying our hands on the screening criteria. And then your screening tools out there, your common background and credit checks, those companies are so afraid of liability by giving the wrong information that they'll withhold information. If you have a different middle initial, if it doesn't match exactly on a criminal, right, Kate, they're not going to give you that info. So we've literally moved people in that got through our screening that had an eviction a year ago. And you're going, wait a minute, what's going on here?
Yeah.
Right. I got to
got
change
flagged.
screening companies.
Yeah.
But then you realize they're all scared of their own shadows because of liability. Right. That's unfortunately doing business in California. We all have to think of the big L word. So we thought long and hard. We said, okay, screening, you might as well not even screen.
Mhm.
Right. If someone's going to get through like that. And we saw that kind of being a trend. So we said we need a solution. There's too much fraud. There's too many bad people getting in that aren't paying. It's a different story when someone gets in and they have a hardship. That happens. That's life. But when someone's getting in to be a fraudster, right,
Yeah.
and rob you basically, and it's tough. When someone's behind a door, that's not who they say they are, and now they're probably subleasing and they get to stay there for 6 months because of our legal system.
Mhm.
That's pretty frustrating. So anyway, back to screening process. In our search for screening tools, we needed screening, obviously, but we needed to do something more. So there's AI machine learning for the document, right? We started requiring bank statements. We started, we always had proof of income, et cetera. And there's some ways of looking at income without asking for proof, right? It's all through different technology. That's all fine, but I always say, what's the exception, right? If this technology isn't going to find your income as a resident of ours, okay, I love it for 80% or 90% or
Mhm.
50%, whatever it is, it makes it easy. But what about the others, right? Because there's only 1, 2, 3% of the fraud,
Yeah.
and they're going to work around those systems. So we found a company that we require everything, all the paperwork. So we increased our requirements, and it's all machine learning documents. So it's all scanned, and they'll tell you exactly if it's fraud. It'll tell you that this was doctored on this such date.
Really?
It's wild.
What's the company called?
Do I say it here?
Yeah, you can say
Yeah,
it.
it's called Two Dots.
2 dots.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
They started so we were their first client.
No way.
Their first client.
That's
I
a
met-
big signing, man.
I met
Good for
the
them.
founder. I met the founder. He came out to LA from New York.
Yeah.
They're now local. They moved over here to,
Okay.
I think, Santa Monica. And since they started, I'm going to say, time flies. I say 2 years. It's
Yeah.
probably 4 years ago, but somewhere in that range. And, I just saw him at NAA in a big booth now, right?
That's
Like center booth.
Yeah.
Saw the founder, and they're somewhere like 500,000 units now, like out of the gate, which is insane. So
They should sponsor this podcast, sounds like.
they should sponsor this podcast. But how did it change our industry?
Yeah.
I mentioned 500 unit lease up in Koreatown.
Yeah.
We saw most of our fraud in LA downtown Koreatown area. I'll just say downtown
Yeah.
area. Our lease up at 500 units, we denied, I think it was 12% fraud.
12% was
of our
fraud.
lease up. So now the same client have other large buildings operated by others.
Yeah.
it's not a knock to anyone. It was just something that the industry needed. And we were probably guilty of it too. When you're leasing up a building, there's always going to be a fraud issue. So that delinquency or bad debt, whatever,
Mm.
in a lease up is pretty it's pretty
Yeah.
damning,
Yeah.
right? So I think the last stat I had, we were 320 units leased, and we had one person not paying.
Which
So
is in LA, that's a
which
win.
in LA in that market
That's a massive win.
was pretty, especially in comparison to their other lease ups. So it was a
Got it.
huge win. It was a game changer for us. So anytime you can manage, not going to eviction by bettering your screening process, it's a win across the board. Such a minor detail that we implemented, and we do a few other things within the screening, but total game changer in our market.
Jesus.
Yeah.
That's incredible. Yeah, it's a big problem, I mean, across the board. And I think when these technologies continue to grow, it's gonna be you're gonna be left behind if you don't implement it.
Right.
Like you almost have to start to learn. And there's people I know my age who don't even use ChatGPT. And I'm like, dude, what are you doing, man?
I just started. I'm in.
Yeah, go. Okay. You have to. You're never going to use Google again, I promise.
Yeah, it's true.
It's really incredible. So I'm curious to know on the data stuff, because I love figuring out hidden opportunities. Alpha, man. I love alpha. So with all the data that you have, let's see if we can uncover some alpha on the podcast. Of the locations, of the units, where is the most promising place that you think either has good rent growth, has been solid in these down markets? Like, where should people be looking to invest based upon just the data that you have from the leasing?
Okay. Being a regional company, right? So we're only talking like Greater LA,
Yeah,
right,
yeah.
and surrounding. I'll tell you from a new development standpoint, the greatest successes we see are new developments in neighborhoods where they're not used to new developments, which sounds scary to some people because they're like, is there a market here? And the answer is yes. So those are our fastest lease ups. So there's like one little takeaway.
Uh-huh.
Whereas if you're, LA is so challenging. If you're in Hollywood, LA, just within the city, it's harder with all the development, options out there, differentiating yourself from a marketing standpoint. It's like, which new building do I go to?
Got
Right?
it.
So trying to get out of some of those markets where there's not as much new construction on a new build. Generally speaking, and I mentioned earlier with the immigration situation, we have seen some softness. Hopefully it's a blip in the radar, right? And it's not a trend.
Yeah.
But like anything, you look at household formation, you look at population, you look at job growth, you look at home affordability, right? Those are all huge factors when it comes to renting apartments. And all of those factors are usually favorable in Southern California. That's why I love the market.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I don't know other markets like I know SoCal, of course, but your appreciation, your lack of build, so for example, over the next 2 years, there's really not much in the pipeline for some of the underwriting and difficulty, whatever you want to call it. But that means there's a little runway for current owners. So, we're coming off 2024 was very flat. 2025, a little rocky. We started seeing a little uptick, and now with the immigration thing, we're kind of seeing, kind of flatline again.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think 2026, 2027, by the numbers and really lack of new supply coming, we should see some rent growth, which is what everyone needs.
So are there any neighborhoods?
Yeah. So generally, I'm gonna do generalization.
You could hedge.
All the rent growth starts in West LA.
Okay.
Okay. So if you're looking at same class, same unit type, West LA is going to be more expensive than Sherman Oaks, than Van Nuys. We saw a wave over the last 5 years. Rent growth starts West LA, but then the wave travels up north through the valley, east to west.
Mm.
So obviously there's been a big uptick in new builds in Woodland Hills, for example.
Mm-hmm.
So I personally live in Westlake Village, which is even further up the 101. But I love the idea as far as neighborhood back to supply, North 101. I think there's great growth to be had from Thousand Oaks to Oxnard going up to Ventura.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah, because that's not talked about. I mean, I'm definitely below the hill. I don't even do as much in the valley as a lot of other people because I started in Koreatown. So I'm very familiar with Koreatown. And there's a ton of development there because the zoning is just
Right.
super perfect for development. But it's interesting that you're seeing it go farther and farther up indoors because a lot of investors are looking in Ventura to Oxnard. They don't want to deal with, LA County rent control and stuff. But if you're doing new construction, it's kind of like squeezing those two opportunities together. And if the rent's going to continue to grow up, it's probably going to make a ton of sense.
Right. Yeah, I see a lot of that and a lot of job growth going that route as well. It's been a trend over really,
Yeah.
I was a Valley kid, born and raised in the Valley. So, back then, right, Agora, we used to ride motorbikes.
Yeah.
There was nothing
Yeah.
there. So you could still see the growth, and there's a lot of, I would say barriers to build,
Feels
out
more
there.
neighborhood,
For sure,
right?
for sure. Great place to raise a family, right?
Yeah.
So that's me, personally. I think I like that growth
Would you
up there.
buy there? Like if you could
100%.
buy anywhere in Los Angeles, where would you buy?
I would go up there. I would go
Really?
up the 101. Yeah. Um, we have a very smart client that she would pick her spots based on coffee shops, the latest trending coffee shops.
No way.
She bought in Ventura. Again, time flies. It was probably pre-COVID, like 2020 maybe,
Okay.
1920. Killed it. Killed it.
Crushed it.
Value add. The old school value add play in the
Yeah.
Valley or West LA. Killed it.
Yeah.
Ventura.
Really?
Yeah.
What do you remember what coffee shops you saw? Was it
Oh,
like,
she's so much cooler than I am. The answer is no, but
yeah.
or knows there's a handful that she was
I'm gonna-
probably tracking. Isn't that interesting?
I might have to meet her and hear some of these
Oh, for
tactics.
sure.
and
I'd be
stuff.
happy to introduce you.
That's
Yeah.
incredible. No, it's funny because understanding, because again, people ask me, Taylor, where should I be buying? Where should I be looking? Where's the next Silver Lake Echo Park? Where's the next Highland Park? Where's this next high growth hipster, coffee shop kind of
Right,
spot?
yeah.
And it's hard to track everything like that because again, LA is so spread out and so big and the laws change in different spots. And I can only talk to so many people at the end of the day. But I've been a big fan because my generation, I lived in Venice for a little bit. I lived in the South Bay for a little bit. I love the South Bay, but very expensive from an investment perspective.
Mhm.
I live now in West LA in the Central City area. And so I see where my vintage of people, I guess you could say,
Right.
my era of people want to live. West Hollywood has lost a lot of favor for my kind of year, but everyone wants to live like coastal West Side a little bit, maybe in the South Bay, Palms, Mar Vista area.
Yeah.
And then the Valley, I think it's like Studio City, Sherman Oaks, a little bit nicer in that because you're close enough to LA. But what's interesting about going up the 101 is that seems to be more of a family-oriented area, right?
Right.
But if they're growing and building these shopping centers or Caruso goes and builds a, new, cool, hip
For sure.
spot, then you might see the younger people going up there and youth seems to be driving where this rent growth comes up, right?
I agree. Yeah, and I think just those, and I agree. Culver City, Palms, right? Those are very popular.
Mm-hmm.
Certainly with the younger beach vibe generation, but you get the same thing further north, right? It's just not there yet.
Interesting.
And so I think when you have investors or clients saying, "Where do I buy?" Well, you want to get in front of that wave, right? Is the idea. The other thought is we've had so much growth over the last 15 years in LA. And another metric we look at is income to lease, right, ratio. And
Like percentage of
or
their
at
income
least
that's
income.
used.
Right.
Yeah.
And we're seeing that tick up every year.
So 33%, 35% of their income,
Correct.
36.
Right.
So it's going
Right.
higher.
Yeah.
So becoming less affordable, basically.
Exactly. So that's an important metric because you figure, back to underwriting and, repositioning an asset, you go, well, what's the affordability? Right. And of course, every neighborhood is different,
Mm-hmm.
but I could just tell you generally in LA, we're seeing a 1% tick every year. So that's trending to where, we cut them off at, 3, right? We want 3
Yeah.
times,
Yeah.
the income, or 2.5. We'll go conditional and we'll make some adjustments as needed, but you can't really go much more than that,
Interesting. So they got to be
So there's an
pushed out
affordability
to
issue,
different
right?
places.
So I would say the other big thing, which isn't any secret, is there's obviously more deals to be found on the smaller level as far as unit count goes.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of, I think, mom and pop owners that hate vacancy, and they're undermarketed, right?
Yeah.
They're underleased,
Yeah.
right?
Totally.
Which provides that value add uptick, immediately. But, I say that because a lot of it is rent control. And back when I first started in this industry, I said, oh, what a great model. Just buy LA rent control. you're guaranteed, 3 to 4% every year, and that's easy to pencil out. Well, as we all know, there's no guarantees in life, and then COVID hit. And so my little rent control
4
payments, I'm
years
like,
in a
oh, wait a minute, that I can't. It's not guaranteed. Nice model, Chris.
nice. Well, did you see what happened in DC? There was a case that just came out where they ruled it unconstitutional for these governments to. I think it was like not they have to pay back landlords for these moratoriums that they put.
I have not heard that
Yeah.
because I did know the California Supreme Court just shut us down on a landlord case.
Yeah, but it just won
All right.
in DC.
So there's hope.
There's hope, which is kind of crazy, and that's gonna be a ton of income. 4 years or 3 years, they froze the rents. You couldn't raise them at all.
That's insane.
That would be like it'd probably bankrupt like LA, to be
Well,
honest.
by the way, it's hurt a lot of people, right? And I'll give you some COVID stats. Talking about data in the industry. It was a scary time, for our clients, right? Because if anyone doesn't have to pay, you wonder how many are not going to pay. And so we were running models, and I remember when that first came out, sitting in my office running models of how many people of our, back then maybe it's 12,000 units or whatever it was, what percentage of people have to pay for me to keep paying employees? And that one,
Holy shit.
yeah, it was a scary time because you didn't know what it was. Is it going to be majority not paying, or is it going to be, is it 10%? Is it 60%? Right. So I was running models to figure out, holy crap, this is pretty scary. At the end of the day, it was a long time of no rent growth. It was a long time of not required to pay rent. And I'll throw some stats out for you. The good news is at the end of the day, most paid. So
Those people are good people.
yeah, right. Most are. And certainly some took advantage big time. So of course, I used to have all the dates down, but from March 2020, call it 2 years, whatever it was, California, right, had the rent freeze and the moratorium. They ended theirs, I want to say 21, 22, maybe it was 21, middle of 21, maybe it was about a year, year and a half for California. Well, they had a program where you could apply and get paid for landlords, for anyone that wasn't paying. We ended up getting probably $12 million for our clients in unpaid rent through the state, which was the majority that was owed. So it wasn't perfect, but it was actually a decent program that made sense.
Yeah.
So hats off to California in that sense. But then the idiots in LA extended for another year and a half or whatever it was, with no recourse for landlords. Here's where it gets worse. So you figured our debt, or COVID debt or bad debt would have been, let's say, $14 million in California up to that first point. We got 12 of it back. Our clients are throwing parties, right?
Yeah.
Like, thank God, thank you for doing this and following the procedure and getting it done. But then LA extends it. We accrued another 15 to 18 million in rent due because of the LA extension with no recourse. And then they say, oh no, it's small claims, it's consumer debt. You could go get it in small claims. Small claims is a state court. We take that to the LA moratorium money to state court, they throw it out. I talked to the city council members, they have no idea. They have no idea that that was happening. So we just treat it as consumers debt. Bottom line, or as regular rent debt. Bottom line, people move out owing a fortune. You send them to collections, and you don't see but 2-3% of it.
Holy
So property owners in LA, we're 1% of the market. Do the math, $15 million in our portfolio alone at 1%. So if there's some court order that we were all begging for and hoping for, like you just mentioned in DC, LA is going to owe a lot of money.
Holy crap.
If they hold their feet to the fire. And as we all know, LA has no money. So where's that going to come from?
Yeah.
So it was a tough time. And unfortunately, the lawmakers and city leaders had no idea what they were doing. And I say that because I meet with them individually to try to be a voice to say, guys, you don't understand what you're doing to the industry. And they're very, the politicians, they give you the ear. Oh, no way. How can we help? Right. Then you send them the letters and, nothing comes out of it.
Yeah.
But it's an unfortunate piece. But yeah, a lot of people got hurt in COVID.
LA's got a ton of problems. I think we all know that. What have you seen, or what do you think is wrong with LA? What's the issue that's causing all this hostility and these two sides fighting against each other, where it seems like the city council is, and then everyone else in business and landlords and all this stuff, they're like butting heads. Where did we go wrong? What's the issues?
I think the issues are it's a popularity contest with our elected leadership. The loudest voice wins. Well, these tenant unions have nothing better to do than to literally go and protest in front of a city council member's office and take over the city building, right? And these council members say, they'll be, "Chris, you don't understand the abuse we take. They take up the hallways. Security has to kick them out." It's like, okay, well, do whatever you want. Just leave us alone, type thing. It's almost fatigue. Landlords don't do that. Tenants outnumber landlords from a vote standpoint and certainly from a voice standpoint. We have better things to do during the day than go hang out at City Hall, right? We're running businesses,
For sure.
and what have you, and trying to contribute, not with our handout, right? We're offering housing, which I think is a great service,
Mm-hmm.
and unfortunately, others are out there with their hand open saying housing is free, and so I think that's our biggest issue. If anyone listening to this, your show, agrees that says landlords are outnumbered. I've been up to Sacramento. I talked to the city council members one-on-one. The best thing we can do is make our voice heard, whether it's a phone call to a city council member or assembly member, a Senate person, whoever it is, if it's a state or city issue, an email. And I know it's asking a lot. I'm on the board of AGLA in LA. We always have a representative at all these city council members fighting. Oftentimes, they're the only person representing landlords in a room full of tenants. That's the issue. So if we can, and I know it's a pain, no one wants to do it, but if you could click that button and send that email, even if it's a template, they see it and they see, okay, wait, we've got some opposition.
Mm-hmm.
We can't do that,
Mm-hmm.
right? So it's a tough hill to climb.
They need their voice. Yeah, we need our voices heard. It's I've showed up to a couple LA City Council meetings, and these were some bigger laws and bills. So I think we had some good support there. But yeah, the tenants outnumbered us for sure, and it's I get it too, right? People, they want to be empathetic with these people who are struggling and all this stuff. But for example, like when they wanted to freeze the rents from the fires for all of the LA City, I'm like, how in the does that make any sense? Where someone in downtown Los Angeles is going to be affected by a Palisades fire, right? Like it doesn't, and they got to freeze their rent. It doesn't make any sense. So that's where I think a lot of the sentiment from investors, when I talk to too, who are just like, I don't want to deal with the brain damage of knowing what's going on here, right? It's just the risk reward has not felt like it made sense for a lot of these investors. Right. Do you feel like LA moving forward is going to continue to get worse, or do you feel like it needs to recorrect itself, like we're at the bottom and it's going to go back? How do you feel about LA long term?
So I always say every year it can't get any worse, and the city council figures out how to make it worse, right? And it's like, wow, I thought truly that was it. We were at the end of the line there. And they try to make it worse with the fire moratorium, right? I was just shaking my head. With that said, as bad as LA city leadership is, and some will lump in all of California, but California looks like a bunch of Trump supporters compared to LA.
Yeah.
Right. When you think of the politics. So as bad as LA is, the property values, albeit interest rates and insurance costs, so I understand it's not all roses, but overall trajectory are just continuing to perform. You can't say that about a lot of markets. Mm-hmm. So I always say, as bad as LA is, look how great the demand and occupancy is and rent per unit, right? Per foot. It's remarkable how resilient the housing market is in LA, even with these idiots doing what they're doing.
Yeah.
So my hope is we're at the end of the line of craziness. I think common sense has to take over at some point where people are like, no, housing is not free. You got to pay for your housing, right? And that's truly what I think some of the goals are of not only, call it socialism, call it what you want, not only of the tenant unions, but honestly of some of the city council members, right? Now they're limited that really want that and feel like housing is a right, but it's there. And I think as more people wake up to it, those people got to be removed. And, we saw it with our Attorney General change, LA, the
Nathan
attorney.
Hochman.
Yeah, yeah. So that was a nice swing. Hopefully we see it with the council members, right, with the voting coming up. But, all I could hope for is common sense wins and we get some people with it in office. And so with that being said, as bad as it is, market's not horrible. So you could imagine what if there is a little pendulum swing? Even a couple of notches, forget halfway, but a couple of notches, I mean, now sky's the limit for them.
Yeah, LA becomes crazy. Shout out to Tracy Park. You are doing
Yep.
great work, Tracy Park. And you're going to be coming on the podcast. It's going to happen. I know we're going to talk about all this fun stuff. I want to talk about the rental data and how can someone determine the best rent for their unit when a vacancy does come up, right? I know that's a big question I get. Hey, what should I lease my unit for? What's market rent? How do you guys determine what you should be trying to rent these vacant units for?
So what's nice, being a regional company with the footprint we have of 15,000 units, we have a lot of data. So we could run our own data. There's also a lot of tools. As you know, it's back to the old school looking at comps, right?
Yeah.
What are the major comps? What are they getting? And then you got to throw out a number and see what the market dictates at the end of the day. So that's the old school way, and that's certainly understanding the market, knowing the market, seasonality of LA, of when that vacancy comes up. Looking at any renovations and what that would do to your monthly rent. At the end of the day, there's nothing wrong with trying for a high number, seeing what response you get, and then dropping it as needed. But obviously, there's a marketing component, to that. Make sure the word gets out. The more the better marketing or more demand, right?
Yeah.
The higher the number that you could get. But what is interesting, one of the things in legislation now this is a California thing. Usually it's the larger, more institutional folks are using the computer-generated revenue management tool.
RealPage, right?
Right. Everyone knows it for that one. But he already has one. There's a few out there. And they're popular for good reason, right? Because you throw in your goals, your lease velocity and your traffic, and it takes comps into consideration, and it adjusts pricing. It's doing everything a human would do, but in a fraction of the time.
Yeah.
Right. And that's what AI is about, right?
Yeah.
Being more efficient. We talked about it at the beginning of the show. So unfortunately, the legislator feels that that's wrong to quote unquote maximize rent.
Your
Even from
investment?
a housing standpoint.
Yeah.
So there is legislation now in the state that, frankly, I think will absolutely pass, which will outlaw any use of pricing management tools in our industry, in the housing industry.
Holy.
So if they're using it now, enjoy it, because I don't think it's going to be around long.
Interesting. So that means no automated tools to analyze pricing, or do you know the language? Is it you can't use pricing to get a first number, or you can't get pricing to do, Monday it's this, Tuesday it's this, Wednesday it's this?
Yeah, I think it's any automatic system technology that's going to give you a price. But it's the same process of what a human.
What is the difference between that and Excel?
Nothing. It's the same. But here's the other thing, back to not knowing what they're doing. They think we're maximizing. Well, yeah, maybe, but guess what happens when traffic drops? Guess what happens when occupancy drops? The computer drops the price. And in fact, we have assets with it, very few, but we do, some of our larger ones.
Yeah.
Those are faster lease ups because the computer is generating a lower amount to generate the leasing velocity versus where we don't have it.
Yeah.
And we have to fight that developer, say, hey, we need a lower price. And they're like, no, you don't.
Yeah.
You need a better leasing person. You need better marketing.
Yeah.
They're like, no, it's really kind
Look
of
at
price.
the data. Look at the
So what's interesting, I guess the irony of it all, the computer will lower the price of housing faster than any human would.
It's almost like supply and demand is like it works. Like
What a concept.
macroeconomics actually, that's how humans think about.
You can't use that here in LA,
Gosh,
right?
man,
Isn't that
that's
wild?
so frustrating because it just feels like people have their handcuffs. They're in a boxing ring and their hands are tied behind their back and they can't do anything and they got to take the punches. And you're really trying. You're really trying. Like you spent all your life to buy this property and your kids, they come and help you and you're renovating it and you're doing all this stuff and then your expenses keep going up and you're like, okay, all right, fine. We're going to do our best. We're going to make a little less money this year, but we'll get through it. And then the government says, hey, by the way, you can't raise your rents for a couple of years. And you're like, really? Like, but my trash bill just went up 35%. Like, are you sure? Yeah, unfortunately, you can't do that. And you're like, okay, fine. All right, I'm fighting through it. Cool. We just need to get through this time and we'll be fine. And then that happens for 3 years. And then your insurance jumps up by 4x, right? And you're looking at yourself and you're looking at this investment that you thought was going to be generational wealth. And you're losing money or barely breaking even, and you have millions of dollars tied up in this. And you got to ask yourself, is it worth it? And for a lot of people and a lot of clients that I talk to, it's no longer worth it. And it's really sad because all of these laws are just making it so that the mom and pop, the person who wanted to have investments, a little bit of cash flow, passivity, generational wealth, they can't do it, or it doesn't make sense. They don't want to give their kids the burden of this stuff anyways, because what is there to do? It's just like a bank account at this point, except it doesn't pay you any interest.
Right.
It's worse than a bank.
Right.
And so that's really frustrating to me. And I think if we can share with people what the reality is from not these greedy landlords, the Blackstones, whatever. And first of all, they own like 12% of the market. So doesn't even make sense to me. Most of LA is mom and pop.
No doubt.
If they can show like this is, Mrs. Sanchez, who worked all of her life in a department store, bought this building 30 years ago, and she has to give it back to the bank. Like, what are we doing?
Yeah, it's sad. And that question, is it worth it, is being asked by everyone. It's landlord fatigue, right? To your point, how many punches can you take? And it's one after another. That's why I'm hopeful that we're at the end of the line, right? The punches are done.
Yeah.
We'll always have to fight, right, to ensure to hold those punches back from a legislative standpoint. But you're right. We hear clients, saying the same. Is it worth it at the end of the day? And that's where my hope is that it changes, right? And it can change with city council, and it could change with votes, right, of getting the right people in leadership. But you're right. I mean, when you think of what LA has done to landlords, the rest of the world, I don't even think understands it, right? The landlords in LA, it's a small number, right?
Yeah.
They certainly know the pain, but it's such a small number that no one else knows the pain. And when you think of, I always said, if I wrote an article or went on social media and did a video and explained each step, kind of almost what you just went through, no rent, you don't have to pay rent. You're not allowed to increase your rent. Your trash fees just went up because LA needs to make more money. Your insurance, et cetera, but everything you just went through. To now, there's a balanced threshold before you could evict, equivalent to 1 month's rent, right? So what does that mean? I can tell you in our portfolio, because each unit type, a studio is like 1,900, or one bedroom is 2,200. For your audience that doesn't know, the resident has to be above that threshold before you could file for eviction. So in other words, they don't even have to pay 1 month, and you can't kick them out. They could hold that balance for as long as they're living in your place. What does that mean? A carrying delinquency consistently of $4 million in our portfolio.
Oh my gosh.
Because they're out or under the threshold.
Yeah.
$4 million. That's that should be in landlords' pockets.
Yeah.
And no one, right? It's hard to run a business that way. So, we have a 3-day notice to cure or quit, another thing in the legislator that was actually not passed. It got kicked aside, but they're asking for reconsideration.
It again.
Is the 14-day notice.
Yeah.
And it changed the 3-day to a 14-day. So it's and by the way, on top of all that, we're going to pay for eviction defense. I mean, that's when I was just like, how can we get any worse?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it's like, we're going to punch you. And then, by the way, we're going to pay for that fraudster resident that committed fraud. We're going to pay The city, taxpayer dollars, are going to pay for that person's attorney. There's no money to attorneys for landlord, right? It's absolutely insane. And it almost makes you want to, scream for help from the someone at the national level to say, we are being, kicked around over here.
Harassment.
It's not constitutional, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
And someone needs to come over here and slap some of our city leaders.
I hope it happens sooner or later because selfishly, and I'll say it selfishly, like it does not make my job any easier for sure. So what are some things, because you've obviously had to get tight with expenses. You've had to maximize every dollar. And, what are some money saving tips or ways that you've been able to maximize the, revenue from properties that you guys manage?
So we always want to maximize the revenue, right? First height as far as values, right? So you always want to try to get max values. You do that for marketing, accessibility, having the right people, et cetera. So it starts there at the revenue line. And then, at the end of the day, we're always trying to increase NOI. So then you have to look at back to every process, constant, never-ending improvement. Where can you save money? We're finding there's some regional companies that are kind of a one-stop shop on a unit turn from painting, right, like your basic. So it's one invoice, quick turn, really shrinks vacancy time rather than dealing with maybe 3 or 4 vendors. And they're pretty darn well priced. So, but the value comes in the time, right, of the unit turn.
Got it.
So, by the way, it helps having a large portfolio because, economies of scale.
Yeah.
We do our best to leverage our size with our vendors. We try to be selective. We don't want to spread our business. We can't have one vendor.
Yeah.
But we don't want 200 vendors. We want maybe 3 to 5 because they appreciate the business and the pricing gets better.
Yeah.
So I think unfortunately a lot of the efficiencies come with size. Your products that you buy, it's all volume, right? The higher your volume, the bigger discount you get. So we're able to take the discounts of product and service due to our size and pass it to our clients. So I would say that unfortunately that's more of a competitive advantage. But like anything, I think there's always a smaller vendor, business person, single operating plumber, for example, that any building owner, and I know a lot of building owners out there have those relationships, right? And they're almost like extended family. I think you can't go wrong with those relationships when you need those services to have the right people to call and to make sure you're getting a good deal or a good value and you're not being lied to. It's such an easy concept. There's really no secret sauce other than the whole relationship and leverage and get the best price.
Are you doing anything from trying to create more storage income, like creating spaces that were underutilized and making them into storage? Are you seeing a lot of landlords do ADU stuff? Are they charging for parking? Are there any ancillary income, laundry? Are there any things like that where you can try to plug and play to increase the income?
Yeah, there's a list of ancillary fees that you could generate, right? With renter's insurance, for example, is one. You mentioned laundry, parking. ADUs is popular. I think it's kind of died off, just because of the cost, benefit return. So that's died off. That was a popular play. I think we will see parking become more of a charge throughout the city. It already is in many submarkets of LA. But a lot of new construction, because it's not penciling, are underparked. We have 2 properties we're opening up in the San Fernando Valley that are underparked significantly, and it'll be interesting because it's the first ones in the valley, right? That, to my knowledge, that are underparked. So it's going to create a challenge, but and we're at the very beginning stages. We're waiting on TCO, but it'll be interesting to see how many residents come in that market that don't have a car.
I'm curious to know what's up.
Yeah, it'll be an interesting white paper for sure.
What do tenants value the most? What things, like if someone's building a property right now, what should they make sure that they either have in their building or that tenants actually will pay for to get the highest rent?
It all comes down, everyone's looking for that secret sauce. Remember, for a long time, the last decades, what do millennials want? Oh, they want co-working space.
Yeah.
They want, social gathering space, right? But then you take any young person and say, what do you want? He goes, location and value. I want to be in a good location at the best value, right? And of course, everyone's different, but those are the main needs, right?
Okay.
At the end of the day. So I never want to overthink it. Obviously, fully amenitized buildings, movie theaters, golf simulators now, and some of the big ones, it's all sexy during the tour, and it sells. So the amenities sell. They're rarely used,
That's what I'm saying.
right? No
Just
one
used
uses.
for marketing
Yeah,
almost.
yeah, absolutely. Um, but I think the best, advice is location, value, and sense of sense of community. So you don't go AI instead of a person.
Yeah.
You got to have someone there. Obviously, it depends on the size of the
Yeah.
asset, but it's your on-site team that's going to create that sense of community and budget a line item for resident events. I mean,
Interesting.
that's the name of the game now.
Really?
How to create that small gym atmosphere, yoga on the rooftop, private trainer in the gym.
Yeah.
You got to get those relationships and develop that sense of community.
Do you guys do all that in-house and coordinate that, or are there companies that you can kind of use as third parties to make these events
So our
happen?
portfolio ranges because we are specific to Greater LA. I mean, we have things as small as 15
Mm.
units. We try to stay above 30, and then we have as high as 500 units. So to your question, yes, there are companies that will run events. As you know, it costs, right? There's a
Yeah.
middleman there. It makes it easy, but there's a middleman. So we're usually generating our own events. They don't have to be spectacular, right? But they need to be social, and they need to be convenient, and they need to be something that the residents want to do.
Mhm.
One of my favorite things, actually, and we've done it at 50-unit buildings and 400-unit buildings, and I unfortunately don't know the guy's name, but he's an electric violin player. He sets up at sunset like a little cool light that lights him up. He'll be like on a balcony
Uh-huh.
over the pool or a walkway,
Yeah.
and he plays on this violin like rock and roll.
No
It
way.
is really cool, and also kind of relaxing too.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So residents go out there, glass of wine. It's awesome.
Ah,
One guy, 2 hours, right? And it
dang.
creates quite the ambiance for our residents, and they love it.
Epic.
So something as simple as that, I
Yeah,
guess.
yeah, yeah. You
Yeah.
just like little things, little concerts or
Yeah.
whatever it is to feel like there's community. That's interesting to me because I've never lived in a big, huge apartment complex. Most of it's 15 units, 6 units, a house, stuff like that. But I can imagine when you're in one of those bigger things, it's like sometimes you don't even know your neighbors.
Yeah,
So
for sure.
what's an excuse to get people in the complex to start knowing each other, becoming friends, share, butter and sugar and stuff like
For
that.
sure. There's a lot of apps too,
Ah,
that kinda could also assist in creating that community. There's one in particular, and by the way, you select which applications on that app that you want to actually do at your community.
got it.
But I know one, for example, is a dating app.
For communities.
We never turn that on.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That might increase
Oh my
turnover
gosh.
or decrease households.
Or yeah, it's exact. Too
One of
many
the two,
people in your
both are
tenants,
bad for our
right?
business, but it
Yeah.
was an interesting concept. They have on the same app, they have, pet dates, dog walking dates, that you could
Interesting.
set up with neighbors, that type of thing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Huh.
all technology driven.
Man, that's super. Yeah, I'm for me, I like to think about where again there's opportunities, where there's alpha in some of this stuff. Are there any alpha opportunities in any of the business that you're doing personally with the company? Other business ideas you have? Like, what are you most excited about? I guess right now, moving forward with what you're working on.
Um, our growth, our vision at 15,000 units to be 30,000 units. 10 years ago, it was 15,000 units, right?
Yeah.
And so that's our trajectory. That's where we want to go. And that gets me excited. Um, I get excited of building a team, seeing someone at new hire orientation and watching them grow within the organization. That's so gratifying to me. We have 400 employees, which means a lot because that means you have 400 families relying on you. Another little motto of ours is if you're not growing, you're dying. And, with growth brings opportunity to your current team members, and it brings security, right, at the end of the day. And that's so important. And
Mhm.
that's what really kind of drives drives me. It's not being the biggest. In fact, in some respects, the mindset, the bigger you are, the more headaches, right? So it's not about being the biggest, but it's about consistent growth so I could keep the talent, keep them interested, and make sure that they feel, and we never have to cut.
Mm,
It would destroy me if we went the other direction and I have to lay off people. That would be destructive.
yeah.
And fortunately, we never had to. We're always growing the team.
I like to ask this question. I like people to think a little bit outside the box. This is unique to you. So I guess I like to ask questions like this. I haven't asked this question before. But if you had to start over from scratch, zero, and you had to start a property management company from the ground up, what would you do to build that company? Because big ships are sometimes hard to steer. So there's certain things you can't do that maybe you want to do, but because it's too big, it would be too disruptive. Like if you had to start over, how would you build a property management company to be the leader, the number one? Are there systems, are there processes? Is there things you do from day one to grow it? Like,
It's a great question. First, I will say we are a big regional company. We're not like a big national company.
like Greystar or something?
So,
Yeah.
for example, I think we're very nimble, right?
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So if there's a new technology
Yeah.
that I want to implement, we're going to implement it.
Okay.
I'm more of an action guy, fail and learn,
Yeah.
than sit on the fence and look for a year of what's next,
Yeah.
right? So we're always what's next. So with that being said, I think the only benefit of starting over is you could create processes a lot easier when you're smaller. But as you grow, the processes have to change,
Mhm.
right? When I first started, everyone wore 10 hats. As you grow, you can't wear 10 hats
Mhm.
or it's going to be a disaster.
Yeah.
So you're always creating new positions and new processes. So I don't, it's interesting. I don't think I would want to start over. I don't think I would change anything. I think, if anything, I guess one thing about starting over would be, we all make hiring mistakes sometimes.
Yeah.
So try to avoid those, but
Yeah.
sometimes that's impossible. But we have such a good team. I think we're such a good culture. We have fun, and frankly, I don't know. I think starting over sounds like a big pain. I love what we have,
Yeah.
and we continue to have fun and be nimble and, try to conquer Southern California market,
Yeah.
for our clients.
Yeah. I a little bit off topic, but I know you're a whiskey guy. Do you have
Yeah.
a favorite whiskey that you like?
Well, I'm kind of an everything guy.
Yeah.
Let's see. Favorite, what would I drink?
Like, what are you drinking right now?
Oh, probably more of a tequila guy.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So give me the tequila that you're into.
Yeah, see, it kind of changes with
Tequila
the
Ocho, like the Fortaleza, is that good? What do you?
I'm kind of simple. Of course, now I'm going blank. Didn't know this question was coming.
Yeah, I know.
No, but
I
it's
just
a good
kind
one.
of pops in my head.
What is it? Who's the actor?
Clooney.
Yeah, what was that brand? The Reposado is what I like. That one.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
Casa Azul? No.
Okay, that one would be
Casa
top
Azul.
shelf. Okay,
Yeah,
so I
yeah.
do that one.
Yeah, I don't remember what.
But you know what's
I
on
was saying that.
top.
Yeah. Clooney's one. Casamigos.
Casamigos. Okay,
Casamigos. Okay.
Casamigos Reposado.
Okay. All right.
With
Some
a splash
repo.
of soda.
Okay.
See, I'm cheap.
Hey, look, yeah, right.
I'm-
A cheap date. There we go. I know. I got a gift for Chris. It's just $35 bottle of Casamigos. Let's go. I want to talk a little bit about AGLA before we wrap up. So you're on the board there. Like, what are you guys fighting behind the scenes? What's actually going on?
It's nonstop, and I never realized it before I got on the board. The association, and anytime there's an audience on a panel or something, I always bring up AGLA to say, if you do nothing else, join, because your membership fees, number one, you get great resources with the membership, to stay up to date on latest market trends. I think it's fantastic with all their red alerts that they're fighting. They put out, they cue you when we need you to dial in city council or state legislator. But just to join, because those membership dollars are going to work for the industry.
Mhm.
I've never seen anything like it, right? There's so much, whether it's charity or nonprofit or organization, you never really know where the money's going.
Mhm.
But being on the board, I see, right? No one's paid on the board. We're all industry folks, donating our time and trying to figure out what's the best thing, for the industry. But to your point, so much of it in California and specifically LA, which I love AGLA being specific to LA,
Mhm.
and they also have the surrounding cities that they cover. But they're in front of these council members. They're at the meetings. They're so dedicated, that team that's there, that are employees of AGLA, which are hugely needed. Like every probably organization like that is understaffed. So they work their tails off. And to your question, it's every year there's a laundry list of legislation written that's being proposed. And by the way, we pay a lobbyist. She's fantastic at the state level. So she gets to work immediately on all the things we're opposing as a board. And unfortunately, we oppose 99% of what's suggested. And we're always trying to find one thing we could get behind, right? So we're not just the bill killers.
Yeah.
But they're hard to find, right? In California especially. So there's a lot of time and effort just going against legislation, right? We talked about all the things that passed that we have to deal with.
Yeah.
I think if the general public knew that what was potentially coming, it's double or triple.
Yeah, wow.
Well, so it's all that effort in the background with the lobbyists to knock that stuff out.
Yeah. Is there anything that
key.
people should be prepared for or do to prepare for anything coming up? Or, is there something that people should be actually looking into?
There's always some that we're trying to, cut down. But I would say, we talked about the 3-day notice to a 14-day notice. Not the end of the world, but I don't think it's going to pass. We talked about the machine pricing, computerized pricing. That's probably gone.
Yeah.
I don't think that's the end of the world. There's always attack on, local rent control, right, and rent caps. There was a bill written that was dropped, but they're trying to reconsider it. With the fires, if it was lost in a fire, and you rebuild, it's going to be subject to 1482. Right? It's like, okay, someone's not going to redevelop, right? It's silly what they do. So there's a lot of that, but I would say, fortunately, we dodged a lot of bullets over the last 3 years, right, with some of those big votes on the props. So the good news is nothing too groundbreaking in the horizon. But then there's always next year. So the folks at AGLA will be fighting again year after year, unfortunately. But, at least they're doing good work.
They are doing good work, and we appreciate them very much. I love your guys' newsletters. It helps me out a lot. I use it. I just regurgitate it to my clients. So I thank you for that. One last thing. I heard Prop 13 potentially can come back. Have you heard anything about that or know anything?
That's always the rumor. So here's my crystal ball. If it comes to haunt us.
Can you explain what Prop 13 is for?
Yeah, so it's your cap on your property taxes, right?
Yeah.
On your purchase. Whereas, a lot of states, right, for example, it's reassessed every year.
Yeah.
And it just becomes a line item, like in the state of Texas, for example, that, we got to fight our property tax assessment. So that's a pain. Hopefully that never happens in California. Because that's what they're trying to do, right? They need revenue, so they want to increase everyone's taxes in one way or another, and getting rid of Prop 13 is one way to do it. So with that being said, it goes back to the loud voices. I think homeowners in California will have a loud enough voice to prevent that from ever happening. That's my future, my crystal ball outlook. However, commercial property is another story. And how do you define commercial? That's a good question. How will the state define commercial at some point? Is commercial, office, industrial, right? Retail, or is commercial multifamily? So that one, I do think commercial, and I'm hoping it does not include multifamily.
I was gonna say.
My crystal ball says no multifamily.
Yeah.
But other commercial assets, which makes no sense, because
the tenant
oddly they struggle more than the multifamily.
Yeah. Mostly the tenants are paying the property taxes, so you're putting all these people out of business. Like, what are you doing?
So but they need money, right? So they're going to find it somewhere. Unfortunately, so I hope I'm wrong, but talking to the Jeffrey Prang, right, tax assessor. Not the collector, as he likes to say. He's not the collector, he's just the assessor, although a pretty important job.
Yeah.
Because it results in collecting, right? So in conversations with him in the past, he has said commercial. He said what I said, and that's kind of where I,
Okay.
take that from.
Man, well, we need to have our voices heard. You guys heard it. There's plenty of time and people for us to go and support. So just like spend 15 minutes and send an email, make a little phone call, like do your part because it affects everyone. So Chris, thank you very much for being here.
Yeah,
And this was awesome.
Yeah.
I love diving into that stuff. I'm a nerd about all the details. So the fact that you knew all that was great. So thank you, man.
Yeah, great meeting you. Great guy, great broker. Call him.
Thanks,
All
Chris.
right, bud. Thank you. That was fun.